everybody, and welcome to the Fitness Network podcast. This evening, I am joined by Jack Thorburn. So, Jack, give us a little intro on yourself.
So I'm 26 years old, to think about that then. I know I don't look it facially, but believe it, I am 26. Been in the sort of fitness industry since I was about 21. I did my first show when I was 22.
Okay.
I played rugby for a long period of time before that, so about, I think it was 11 years. And then towards the latter stages of that was when I started to sort of train. And then the sort of training took over from the rugby because I was enjoying that more. And I had a lot of injuries playing rugby, so couldn't really enjoy it as much. So then went into training after a few years of sort of more bodybuilding specific stuff. I got told by two very well respected coaches down in Wales. Obviously, I'm from Swansea in South Wales. That I've got sort of somewhat potential within the sport. So I think it was a couple of years later, instead of just jumping straight in after that, I waited a couple of years because I still didn't think I was good enough. And then, competed at the age of, I think it was 22, was the first show I did. In Port Talbot in South Wales, and sort of got the bug then. And I think I competed 4 times that year in 2016. And then in 2017, I competed another 3 times then in 17 as well. Did fairly well within them. I got to the British finals of the BNBF, the British Natural Bodybuilding Federation, both years, so 16 and 17. First was as a junior, the second one was a middleweight. So both years I got to the finals. First year I came third. Second year I came fourth, I believe. I'm not bitter about the placings, even though I believe I placed higher. No, I really do. But for me, I'm very different in the fact that I literally don't care about placings at all. I find it quite strange because I'm incredibly competitive, like stupidly competitive, but like I sort of want to win a game of cards at the dinner table more than I do a body. Like, I don't really care about the winning. It's as long as I look good and look the best I've looked, I'm not bothered. So to a degree, it is very competitive. It's just competitive within myself. I know a lot of people say the whole me versus me thing, and like a lot of people just laugh it off. But I like both times when I didn't win the British finals, I wasn't angry, I wasn't upset, because I knew I looked the best I could. Funnily enough, the person that was the most frustrated on the day was my dad, who'd had a couple of pints in the audience. Typical rugby fan, but this was his first bodybuilding show, so he didn't really know how to act. So he'd had a couple of bevies in the crowd, and he came backstage after I'd came third as a junior, and he believed I should have won it. It was very close, to be fair. He believed I won it, and he was shouting the odds backstage. He was like, "Oh, this is rubbish!" I was like, "Dad, shut up!" And like, there were loads of competitors around and everything, but I was fine with it. So yeah, and then since then, so last time I competed was 2017. So that's been 3 years ago now. So it's been a long 3 years off the stage. That was done more to, I had quite a few like physical niggles I needed to sort out. They weren't like injuries, but it just hindered my training massively. So I potentially could have competed this year, but I just wanted to make sure I was 100% ready. I still don't think I'm ready next year, but in my head, it's just, I don't think I'll ever feel ready then. So I just need to do it, because it's exactly the same for when I first competed. I was delaying it because I wanted to be my best, but you're never going to feel that. If you've got that type of attitude where you're always striving to be better, you'll never be truly happy with where you're at. Like, don't get me wrong, every time I've stepped on stage, I've been very pleased with how I've looked, but I've always known I want to be better. So if I wait around until I'm as good as I think I should be, I don't think I ever would compete. So the plan is to compete in like probably July time of next year, around there. So
okay.
yeah.
So with you've always been a natural, haven't you? You've always competed with the natural federations.
Yes. Yeah, I've always been a natural athlete, but on my first show was the PCA. I competed in the PCA. It was in 2016.
Yeah.
So that was my first show. So what a way to sort of jump in. I did the classic in the PCA Welsh. Funny story because it was my first show. I wasn't sort of ready for anything, and I was sat in the audience eating a meal, and the timings were off, and they basically came out and said, "Oh, is competitor so and so ready?" And I was like, "What?" I had to like run backstage. I didn't even have my chunks on. I had to like go to the toilet, pull my chunks on. So I just had a meal. I had no like top up tan on because I was gonna put another bit of tan on before I went on stage. I had no glaze on, no pump up at all, and I had to go out on stage as the only natural in the class as well. So it was a bit of a joke, really. Luckily, I looked a lot better in the night show. So if you ever see pictures from that show, I'll only post those ones. And then the week after that show, because I wasn't pleased with how what happened there, I did the NABA Welsh as well. So obviously those two federations aren't tested.
Yeah.
And I did the juniors in that show. However, I was very fortunate that the other two that turned up were both natural as well. So luckily, and they were twins. So good on the judges for separating those two. It was so awkward because I knew I'd won, so it was all right. And then the judges had to like pick between these two twins. They were very similar, so that was quite funny. So I won that. So I've done two untested federations, to be fair. And then like you said, I did the BNBF.
Yeah.
I am looking to do the UK DFBA next year as well, just because they're both the two main federations. They are run very differently, but they're both run really well. So I'd like to do the both. And to be honest, I feel like I didn't compete enough, even though I did plenty of shows. Really, like I want to make the most of it, because having a 3-year off season has made me realise you got to make the most of it. So
yeah. The very first person I ever went to for a plan was Nick Openshaw, who does BNBF.
Yeah, he does loads of shows, doesn't he?
Yeah, I mean he's like his age is like he's super shredded. It's ridiculous, but I mean he will diet for a year for a show. Is that a kind of normal thing for natural? Or is that just
I do long preps, but mine are about 30. Well, the problem is, what will happen is I'll do a 16 to 20 week diet for my first show. If I qualify for the finals from that show, I'll basically stay on the diet from that qualifier to finals. So that'll add another 16 weeks on top of that.
Right.
Because quite often, because I being in Wales, I like doing the Welsh qualifier, and the Welsh is fairly early on. So in 2017, I ended up doing like a 33-week diet or something, and it is literally just like your year gone. But then you do get an insane condition when you sort of spread a prep out for that long. You're not rushing anything at all. And as a natural, like I don't really like to differentiate between the two, but as a natural, it is slightly better because you haven't got things that can speed the process up. And that's one thing I think a lot of enhanced bodybuilders are learning from the natural scene, is potentially sort of taking a bit longer with their preps. Because it used to be the typical, most like people would do like 12-week preps, but now they're sort of spreading them out more to the 16-week, and I think that helps them a lot, really.
Well, otherwise you just end up doing 2 hours of cardio or something, you know. All the time.
I can't imagine that.
Yeah, I think sadly as a bikini girl, cardio is kind of a given, really, that we end up doing it for a long time. So in terms of training as a natural athlete, do you think that you have to train differently and harder to build muscle? Or do you think it's just because I've noticed that a lot more natural bodybuilders seem to be a lot more educated and a lot more kind of up on all the techniques and really, really utilizing like every kind of ounce of everything because you're not using anything that might help?
Yeah. Well, obviously, as a natural athlete, the only tools we have at our disposal are training and nutrition. So we have to maximize that if we want to get anywhere near the progress that we could if we were enhanced. The enhanced side of it potentially can act, I highlight, like emphasize potentially, act as a band-aid in terms of the fact that it can mask some issues that people may have. Like you may see people that eat horrendously, but they get in pretty good shape, and it might be because they're using enhancements. The same goes for training. Some people can train like absolute fairies. That's politically correct. Sorry if it's not. And they may get away with it because of the enhancement. But then again, the reason why British bodybuilding has now become what it has, and it's seen around the world as like an incredible scene. The bodybuilding scene within the UK is outstanding, and it's because the UK, in the sort of top enhanced bodybuilders in the UK, are now nailing down everything in terms of their training and nutrition. So they're almost approaching it like a natural would in terms of maximizing that, and that's why they're getting the results they are. They're also, funny enough, I was on a podcast with Matt Jansen the other day, so one of the top coaches in the world, and we both said that what he now preaches about himself is basically that everyone needs to have, if you're enhanced or not, you need to have the sort of meticulous attitude of a natural bodybuilder, but then obviously just sprinkle the enhancements on top. So yeah, just to answer your question, I think I certainly wouldn't say the natural bodybuilders train harder, because there are some insisted that it's impossible sort of to train harder, but they do pay, I think, especially nowadays, they pay a lot more attention to the sort of intensity that they're training at, making sure their volume's correct, things like that. They have to be a lot more meticulous with their nutrition as well. So making sure everything's on point. Like people laugh, but I weigh my lettuce out, stuff like that. I know I'm like an anomaly. I'm like far over the top, but I'd rather be like that than basically like when I prep. Well, I love going to bed knowing the fact that I literally have not done a single thing wrong that day. Like I can't imagine. I used to always say to myself, like, I can't imagine trying to go to sleep thinking, oh, I wish I hadn't gone over on that. Like when people, I don't know whether you've done it. Sorry if you have done it, but when people like binge on their diet or whatever and like go against, I actually can't comprehend. If I did that, I'd probably jump off a cliff. Like, no, but like I actually can't. I can't imagine because so for example, I don't eat chocolate at all. And I haven't for like 11 years, and that's not because I couldn't, like I could, no issues at all. But people just say to me, oh, just have one, and this, and it's just like, if I give into it, that's who I am as a person. Like I pride myself on being very dedicated, like very meticulous. If I gave in on that, that's who I am as a person, basically gone. Yeah. And then if that was the case, I'd probably just quit the sport altogether and then become like a fat slob.
Were you like that when you were playing rugby as well?
What, in terms of very
being so meticulous and yeah?
Like rugby was basically everything to me when I was like I moved away to a boarding school to play rugby as well. Right. So which probably helps with the discipline and sort of the fact that I'm not too worried about being on my own for weeks on end because I was in school, yes, like I moved away at the age of 16 to play rugby in a college in West Wales called Llandovery.
Yeah.
So I was away from like my parents all like for months, just playing rugby up there. So yeah, I think I'd say that I was like that with rugby. I was very obsessed with it. Like I'd watched YouTube videos of rugby all the time, and it was all I really cared about. So yeah, it's probably the same thing, and it's just carried over. So probably like quite an obsessive.
I think that is a trait though of a lot of bodybuilders, because I mean I was the same when I was younger. It was horse riding. I was obsessed. Every single day I begged my parents for a horse, and I learned everything I could about it. Saved up all my pocket money. But it's the same. Like I do notice that now, that a lot of people who really really want to do well in the sport is that they will read everything about it or watch. I mean, like, when you do cardio, you'll watch videos or anything that you can on it, because you pick up all these little bits all the time. So yeah, I mean, that's definitely a trait I've noticed in a lot of people. But
I think it's something you have to be really, though. If you want to be good at it, you've got to be kind of all in. It's not really a sport you can like half-ass.
No.
Like if you wanted to half-ass football, you could just play it on the weekend, Sunday league for a laugh. You can't really do that with bodybuilding. You know what I mean? Like, obviously there are people that go to the gym for a social, but they don't class themselves as bodybuilders. Do you know what I mean? You can't bodybuild half-assed.
Not when it comes down to everything, like your sleep being perfect, and or that you training at a certain amount at time of day and eating your food at a certain time of day. It just doesn't work. I don't know. Okay, and so with the drug tested federations that you do they test you at every show? Because I've never been to one. I've never seen.
Okay, so how I believe it's run very similar in the UK DFBA, but I can only comment on the BNBF. So the way that's run is the show will go ahead. The top three, so whoever places top three in each category, once they've finished, they will come off stage and they will be drug tested by the means of a urine sample. Okay. So if you're on later on in the day and you've been depleting water for like coming up to 16 to 24 hours. Yeah. I've known people that have sat in, because you have to stay in the same room. You can't go out anywhere. Yeah, so you have to stay in this room after coming off stage. You may have won, so you might be buzzing, and then you might have to sit in a room for 2 hours because you can't pee. So yeah, all that'll be is then, so they take a urine sample, they send it off to the US, whatever, and then get tested. But then once that's happened, then if you qualify for the finals, every athlete goes up a day early, and they're polygraphed. So they do the whole lie detector spiel of they hook you up with like a blood pressure monitor, a heart rate monitor, and then one other thing I can't remember. And then they ask you all these questions. Obviously, there are ways to like fake a polygraph, but if you're going to really go to that sort of length to pass a drug tested federation, like, you're a sad person, really. But
yeah, no, because I always wondered whether, because I presume that for a urine test that you could have taken something in off season, added muscle, and then it would be out of your system.
Yeah, that's how they distinguish it. So before the polygraph test, you have to disclose on a piece of paper every supplement you've taken for the past, like, however many months or years it is. I remember when I first competed, I was bricking it. I was so nervous because when I was in college, I took a product from Animal called Animal Stack, which is like a natural testosterone booster. Right. And when we were in college, like, because when you were younger, like, you used to big up supplements so much, like, oh, you're taking creatine. And everyone was talking about this this Animal Stack, but no one would take it. But they were all talking about it being this natural testosterone booster, and supposedly if you took it, you became like really angry, your hair might fall out, and I was like, oh, I'll take it. So I took it. Didn't really notice anything, to be honest. I think I became a little bit more of a prick on it, but and then I remember worrying loads about whether that would flag up. So I was panicking loads. But there's a Facebook group that a lot of people are a part of, and basically any supplement that we want to use, all we do is put a picture up of the product and then the panel, and we've got a really good guy behind it all. His name's Davey J. He must get so frustrated with some of the stuff that goes on. I get given abuse on there because I make fun of people on there. Someone the other day put their vitamin C tablets on there, and I'm like, are you serious? The vitamin C. But yeah, so he just answers. He checks through everything. So yeah, there's basically anything that you've got an issue with, you just put it up on there. There have been plenty. I have known plenty of people that have got. Funny enough, one of AJ's clients in 2016. He won't mind me saying this because I won't name who it was. AJ had a client in the BMBF finals in 2016 in Scotland. He drove all the way to Scotland to watch this boy compete, and then at the polygraph, he disclosed a supplement that he'd been using that was banned, and he wasn't allowed to compete. So, and he'd known about this the whole time, and he hadn't mentioned it, and then he mentioned it at the finals, so he wasn't able to compete. And it's like an 9 hour drive up there. But yeah, so so we have got to be really careful, because there are some things that are stupid. That, for example, there's an ingredient called bitter orange. Yeah. But it's like a side name of an actual can't remember the real name of it. It might be synephrine. But something as harmless as the name bitter orange is banned in competition. There are all these names that I think one's called like walnut extract, and even that's like banned. There's loads. So you got to be quite careful. But basically anything I have an issue with, I just bang on that face.
Yeah, because I think I'm part of that site, and I saw stuff like pre-workouts. You have to be really careful with a lot of.
Yeah, most of them are pre-workouts.
Really? Didn't think they
most of the like ones that are used now, you have to drop 2 weeks out from a show. They're fine. This is like a really touchy subject and people don't get it, but you can use them all year, but it's not allowed to be in your system on the day of the show. Like some of the stimulants, I don't know why. So most of the time you just drop them 2 weeks out. So.
What is it then in terms of, like, I don't know whether you use it, but do you ever use water tablets to dry out for a show?
I use a product called H2O Remove. From Project AD. Yeah. Whether I need it or not, I don't really know, to be honest. It's one of those. It's one of those that I just use it because in my first ever show I was told to use it. So
you've kept it in.
Just as a routine, I use it. You know, in 2017, I probably could have competed every morning for about 4 months straight. I was in show condition. Honestly, for about 4 months straight, I posed every morning, and I was like, I could step on stage. So whether I actually needed it or not, I don't know. But the thing with that product is it's all natural diuretic stuff anyway. So it's just stuff like dandelion extract and stuff like that. So that's never an issue. But obviously you've got to be careful. You can't use any like unnatural diuretic stuff. Yeah,
I've used H2O Remove as well.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty good. Okay, so what first kind of made you want, or has made you want to always be natural, or would you rule out? Like,
no, I think so. I've mentioned this effect. This is like an FAQ. This is the most frequently asked question, without a doubt. I'd say the number one is I would get disowned by my family instantly. They're so against it. My dad would actually batter me, like no joke. He'd give me a hammering. So that's the first reason. Second reason, obviously the listeners will guess already from what they've heard that I'm quite extreme, and I'm pretty all in. So if I'm going the enhanced route, I am all in that field as well. And that is not a healthy place to be. I know there are a lot of people saying, yeah, but if you want to do the best you can be, you'd be sensible with it. But no, like the stuff I do now as a natural, a lot of it isn't sensible. Like I go pretty extreme, you know, like I remember I had food poisoning before and I knew I had to do cardio. So I literally could barely walk. I hadn't slept at all because I was ill, and I was like, no, you got to do the stairs. So I was doing the Stairmaster, and I can't remember doing it. And then I trained after it then, and because of the dehydration, I was doing dumbbell rows, and all I remember is like face plant in the rack because I'd like collapsed in the middle of it. So just like stupid stuff like that. Like I'm pretty. It's not like sensible. I'm very all in with it. Like I don't know when to sort of stop. So if you add the enhancements in that, that's a very sort of tricky sort of path to be going down. And I personally don't see me being alive for a very long time. And that's as stupid as that may sound, that's a very serious comment. Like I'm very extreme with it. And also, like, I want to be the best within my field, or at least like one of the best. And then if I go down the enhanced route, I'm very aware that I will not be the top of that field. Like some of the athletes in there, especially even the young guys now in the UK, even in the UK, the young guys here. So I'm fully aware that if I was to go down that route to try and be the best in that sport, that sees me doing a hell of a lot, and I still wouldn't reach the sort of epitome of that. So that's another reason. And like, I don't know, probably final one. I see all the sort of supplements that you have to take, and the like blood tests all the time, just stuff like that. And I really can't be dealing with that. Like all that malarkey, like I can't be dealing with it.
It's just an extra worry, isn't it, all the time on top of it all.
Yeah.
Really.
Like I have enough worries and like sort of things running through my head all day, and to be adding that in the mix, like as a time bomb. So
yeah. So by the sounds of all this, you coach yourself, and have you kind of done that?
For my the first year, so 2016, the two people that talked me into sort of the whole bodybuilding thing, I don't know if you know who they are, Mike and Lisa Gelsey.
I was going to ask that at the time. Yeah, I thought it was them. Okay.
Yeah, so Mike and Lisa, they sort of prepped me, more Mike. So Mike prepped me in 2016 for all 4 shows. He also, we were also kind of working together in 2017, just because I would train with him once a week. So I'd go up and train with Mike, and then we'd do like posing afterwards, and I'd just be like, oh, what do you think? What should we do? And then he'd just say like, oh, maybe drop this, drop that. So we just like shoot ideas back and forth. I'm not going to be one of the people that says, oh, I had a second eye, but it was because there are people that just don't like to admit that they're not coaching themselves. Yeah. So like we'd like shoot ideas back and forth. He'd just give me his opinion. But yeah, at the moment, I'm coaching myself. I think I'd quite like to do it for the season next year. I know I'm more than capable of doing it, but it's the whole self-sabotage kind of thing. Like because I say to myself all the time, I've done it during the off season. Like when I know I should increase food, and I haven't, I've sat back and thought, right, treat your pictures right now as if it was someone a client checking in with you, and then just make that call and then just do it for yourself. But I never can do it. So I don't know. I probably will do it because I want to sort of prove to myself that I can do it. at the same time, without sounding a tight so-and-so, save quite a bit of money in the process as well. Because to be honest, like, if I was going to go with any coach, like, it would be like a pretty decent one, like it would be one of the sort of bigger names within the industry. Certainly the UK industry, I'd probably stick with a UK coach. I'd have a few in mind, but and I know that route isn't cheap either. So to save myself a few quid. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think if you definitely can do it yourself, I mean, do you work with anyone?
Sorry? Do you work with anyone? Does anyone coach you at all?
I've pretty much always had a coach, and I think it's because I just would overthink it.
Yeah.
But it's funny because my mum said to me the other day, she was like, "You write diets for people, and yet you won't write your own." And I said, "No."
Yeah, it is true. It's like what I said, though. It is very true.
It's
just a self-doubt thing. That's all
it is, and I look back at photos now where I was in peak week or a couple of weeks out, and at the time I thought, probably still more needs to come off. And now I look back at them and I think, what on earth was I thinking? I was absolutely minute. Like I needed a refeed really or something. Yeah. But it definitely, your brain, I think, does stuff. So, but kind of going on from that. So I saw you at a seminar that Jordan Peters did. I think it would have been about 2 years ago now.
I think it was May 2018, was it?
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, okay. I mean, it was a brilliant seminar. But that kind of thing, I assume that you attend quite a lot, and you've kind of educated yourself through all that, because if you haven't had a coach for quite a few years, then you must have done that.
So obviously I coach other people myself. It's not my main sort of job. So I don't like put it out there a lot, but I think the thing with me is I've always, going back to when we said about immersing yourself in things and being obsessed. Like when I first started training properly, so at the age of like 16, like I was already looking into like nutrition, like crazy, training. Like I know the magazines aren't the best source of information, but at the age of like 15, I would get every Flex magazine like every month, all the time, and I would read. I'd always be flicking to the sort of nutrition as soon as I got it, or like the training methods and stuff. So even at that age, I had a very good knowledge in terms of like nutrition and training. And from there, it just grew. So I think when I was like 18, 19, I was a member of John Meadows' website. And he was one of the first, and it's some of the sort of information he had in some of like the forums and blogs on there was amazing. And I used to read it. Like whenever I had like 10-15 minutes to spare, I would go through the logs and like read all these discussions and stuff. Obviously I've been a member of Jordan's site for ages now. Like a very long time. So always looking up on that. But and then doing things like the Muscle Mentors. I've been to one of their seminars. I'd love to go to more because they are incredibly informative.
Because they have an online site as well, don't they? Yeah. Muscle Mentors have an online site as well.
Yeah. Don't they? But I don't know whether I'm paying £60 a month for it. That's all.
Yeah, I thought that.
Don't get me wrong. It probably would be worth it because the amount of information they have on there is incredible. If I was an online coach as my job, I probably would be on that. I love just like knowing more about everything like within the industry, like always the training side of it, the nutrition. Because I'm a fat boy at heart, I love reading about food. Like even if it's the better sort of performance, I still love that. So yeah, like I'm always looking at things, like always listening to like podcasts all the time. Some of them aren't always the most informative, but I still try and keep some informative stuff on there. But
Yeah.
and then even like the people you follow on Instagram and stuff like that, you know, I always try and make sure that I'm following the people that are putting out good information. Because even like Instagram, some of the stuff on there is actually awesome for the content, you know.
Yeah. I think now as well, like I was saying to clients now in lockdown, like this is a great opportunity for you to learn more. I mean, the brilliant thing about bodybuilding is, like you say, like we are never a finished article. Like we are always changing our physiques and improving it, but we also can improve our minds and knowledge as well, which is a great kind of thing hand in hand. But yeah, definitely I'd say podcasts and online. I mean, I think now because of the last lockdown, there is so many seminars and things that you can find now on YouTube. Like that was the good thing about Muscle Mentors, I noticed, is like I come from a science background, and I really liked how he will really go into depth with everything as well.
Oh yeah, they know it in and out. Yeah.
Yeah. But then it's nice to hear like somebody like Jordan Peters speak, and you know, a lot of it is experience driven from him as well. So it's good hearing all the different points of view, because I think you know, like they say, it's kind of bro science and actual science and things like that, but it does have to be a combo of things, I think, really. Like
definitely sort of in a bit of trial and error as well, which is where John Meadows, I know I've plugged him twice now, but he is coming up to like the perfect blend of the two, really, because he's been in the industry coaching people for so long, 20 odd years probably. So he's got a lovely sort of blend. Funny enough, I got to mention I went to a seminar of his, and do you know Eugene Teo? Have you ever heard of him?
Yeah.
So he's got a member site as well. His Instagram, I know he posts loads of funky stuff like circus acts, but his Instagram is an absolute gold mine as well. And not just in terms of like bodybuilding, but just like general functionality and living a good life. Like he's the one that turned me on to the sort of nasal strips. And like
he's cycling in the morning with those on.
Funny enough, I've got this was shipped over from Australia, because he gave me a box full in 2018, and it lasted me 2 years. That's how many he sent me. So 2 years worth of nasal strips every day. They only ran out about a month ago, and they've I ordered them back over. They're not cheap though.
You got
not
another 2
cheap
years
at all.
worth.
No, I did buy another year's worth actually, but it probably cost me about 100 quid. But and then they have the cheek to throw £20 import tax when it comes over.
Oh yeah,
But
I love
do all the time. Yeah, going back to that, Eugene Teo is a great follow as well. So yeah, I went up to a 2-day seminar with those two and learned loads, and just you see how much of a nice guys they both are as well. So
yeah, John Meadows, like his questions and answers are brilliant. Like he will explain them so simply as well.
Yeah, that's the best part. He doesn't like overcomplicate it.
No.
Someone who's also very good for doing that is Scott Stevenson.
Okay.
Dr. Scott. So he knows so much, but then he knows that who he's talking to can't really speak his language, so he kind of like dulls it down a little bit. So he's great for it as well.
Yeah. Okay. So going back to when you started, like what advice would you give somebody, say, who is I don't know, maybe COVID's had an effect on them and they think that they should now get into fitness and start going to the gym? What kind of advice would you give a newbie going? Like, what should they be nailing diet first and then training?
I'd say obviously easing your way into it, but at the same time you need to be easing your way into just becoming immersed in it and like genuinely loving it. Are we talking about like getting into bodybuilding now, or just the sort of fitness side?
I think probably just starting to lift, really, you know, just for their own fitness.
I think the main thing is that you learn to enjoy it, and because like I even enjoy the sort of shit side of it. So like in terms of like, do I really want to be getting up at 4:30 to do cardio? but I kind of do. I actually enjoy it.
Yeah.
Not because the cardio is fun, but like I enjoy it because I know it's like a step from me getting better.
Yeah.
So I think when you start to learn that most things are just self-betterment and like improvement, then as long as you learn to enjoy each one of those aspects, it becomes a lot easier. So if you enjoy what you do, it becomes so much easier. So
Yeah.
I think learn to enjoy the training, learn to enjoy the diet. Like, don't make your diet boring. Like, I eat the same meals every day and basically have for the past like 5-6 years. And people are like, oh, how can you do that? And it's funny enough, it's because I like the meals I eat.
Yeah.
So like, you don't have to eat boring meals. Even when I'm prepping, I don't. So, make sure you enjoy food, train the way you want to train, really, because I think that's where people get that's where there's issues, when people try and do a training method that they think might be the best, but they don't really enjoy it, so they don't stick to it. So like 100% adherence to a 90% sort of plan is better than like 50% adherence to 100% plan. I mean, so I think that's the main thing. So, but at the same time, don't train like an absolute idiot, but do what you enjoy.
Yeah.
And continue to learn. So follow the right people, be influenced by the right people is another thing. Don't be influenced by these fitness influencers that will have you doing banded kickbacks on the Stairmaster, things like that, because that's a massive issue, really, like who people are influenced by. So that'll be another thing I'd say. Make sure you surround yourself by the right people, and potentially get to know people that are in your area, that are, so maybe people in the gym that you train at, because if you've got like a good group there, it becomes a lot easier and it's actually an enjoyable sort of pastime. So I'd say that's probably a good idea.
Yeah, no, I like that. That's good advice. Okay, our quick fire round questions, my favorite topic. Okay, wow, maybe you don't have one. Favorite guilty pleasure food?
Well, yeah, but it is chocolate. See, it is still chocolate. Like, I am a massive chocoholic. Like, so everything, all of my protein powders and stuff like that, they all have like
chocolate.
Most of them are chocolate based.
Right.
And don't get me wrong, like I know I say I don't eat chocolate, but Matt over at Build and Bake does send me care packages now and again with his incredible. Have you ever had them before?
Yeah.
I'll plug him away. So Build and Bake, Jack 15 if you are using it. But yeah, his brownies are incredible. So I do treat myself to. I say treat myself. That realistically they're sweet potato. Like, come on. But like, I am a massive chocoholic. So like when I was a kid, I used to. There's a shop on my walk home from school, so I would go there and get like 2 chocolate bars or 3. Finish them by the time I got home, and then I'd wash it down with a pint of chocolate milkshake to finish off. And I do that like every day. So that's why I kick that to the curb. But I still have I still make sure all my protein powders are like chocolate flavored and stuff like that. So I'd still say chocolate's up there. Even though I rarely ever have them, I do love a burger as well. But I haven't. I couldn't tell you the last time I went out for food. Obviously, lockdown has influenced that, but at the moment I'm on such a roll that I don't have any desire to go out for it. But I need to sort that out because it's not really a sort of good mindset to have. But yeah.
It's all right. It's working for you, and it's definitely good in lockdown.
I'm sure if I was having a burger once a week, it wouldn't be doing too much of an issue either. But no.
Okay, favorite stage pose?
Side chest, I'd say. That's the sort of signature. Probably I'd say that because it might be different next year, but I always hate my front shots because I've always had quite like a wide waist. hence why I wear this
Ah,
all day, every day. Yeah, so I wear a waist trainer all the time now.
have you noticed the big difference?
Yeah. I know I dieted during this time as well, but I got the waist trainer in March or April time, and my waist was 36 inches. And then when I finished my mini cut in, what was it? If we're in November, I think it was September. In like end of September, it was down to 33 inches.
Wow.
So 3 inches off my weight in, and that was in 6 weeks.
Yeah.
It's a 6-week mini cut, and then previously I was wearing the waist trainer, so I wouldn't have lost 3 inches to my waist. Like, I'm not going to say it's a miracle worker, but I do wear this all day, every day, and basically all it's doing is making me aware, because I was awful for it, of just like letting my stomach go, like just walking around not having any control of my midsection. Whereas now, because you have like a constant sensation around your midsection, you're always, like when you tense your sort of obliques around there.
Yeah.
I do that all the time now because you're constantly aware of it, so you're bracing against it. And I take it off when I train, and even when I'm training, I'm still holding it, but I just do that subconsciously now. So I do believe it's helped. One thing it's also done for me is like I have shocking posture because of tight hip flexors.